People who've known me for a long time might raise an eyebrow when I say that the most prized books in my collection are the two-volume set of the personal memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant. That's because I was raised in the South amidst all the lost cause mythology that I heard in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and I was happy to believe all of it. In fact, my Civil War biography collection is still dominated by works on soldiers like Robert E. Lee, Jeb Stuart, and Nathan Bedford Forrest. Plus, a lot of my ancestors served in the Confederate Army, many of them in the Stonewall Brigade. So, as you might imagine, I have a lot of stuff on the campaigns of that unit as well as Stonewall Jackson himself. But, fortunately, my formal study of military history has led me to a more balanced approach over the last decade or so. I'm sure that by now you've noticed the portrait of Lee hanging over my left shoulder. But if I move my head, you can also see a print of Grant hanging rather prominently, and just over from that, right there on the end, you can see the books that I'm talking about here. Now, any honest study of the war reveals very quickly that as a commander, Grant had no superior and damn few peers. I'm planning a series of videos on Grant in the near future. So why, other than being a fan of Grant, do I value these books so highly? To start with, this is a first edition print from 1885, and the volumes are in surprisingly good condition. The covers show their age, but they're still strong and very cool, as you can see by the embossed letters and the commemoration of Grant's promotion to Major General. He was a Lieutenant General at the end of the war, so I don't know why they didn't do that, but it's still a very nice cover. While the covers are in decent shape, the pages are in phenomenal condition. The paper is bright and has obviously been taken care of. The frontispieces of each book are beautifully done, with Volume 1 featuring a daguerreotype of an engraving of Brevet Second Lieutenant Grant at age 21, and Volume 2 an engraving of Lieutenant General Grant in 1865 with a facsimile of his signature. Volume 1 also has a dedication to the American soldier and sailor in a facsimile of Grant's handwriting, which I think is really cool. Now, one of Grant's greatest early victories was the capture of Fort Donelson on the Cumberland River in February of 1862. It was here that he earned his nickname Unconditional Surrender because he refused to grant terms to General Simon Bolivar Buckner, the Confederate commander, when he asked for them. Volume 1 features a fold-out facsimile of Grant's correspondence with Buckner. Buckner's response to his old West Point classmate was that he considered Grant's refusal to be ungenerous and unchivalrous. And here you have an early indicator that Grant understood that warfare was changing. He knew that chivalry was going by the wayside, and this was a new kind of war. He was playing to win. And that fact was not lost on Abraham Lincoln as the war progressed. One of the things I like about this book is there's some really, really nice maps throughout both volumes. I'm really big on maps, and I think it's very difficult to follow real military history, follow battles, campaigns like that without good maps. And this book has good maps. I like that about it. Here you can see maps of the Shiloh battlefield, the Vicksburg campaign, and the Siege of Atlanta, as well as very nice likeness of the McLean House in Appomattox taken from an engraving. And it was the McLean House, of course, where Grant and Lee met to discuss Lee's surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia. Interestingly, Grant takes the opportunity to debunk the story that Lee offered his sword as a token of surrender, and apparently that didn't happen. Now, this effectively ended the war, even though there was still some, a little bit of fighting left to do, not a lot. Johnston was still in North Carolina, Forrest was still roaming in Mississippi, but for all intents and purposes, this ended the war. Another fold-out has a facsimile of Grant's terms as provided to Lee at the meeting. It even reproduces the color of the paper on which it was written. That's why it's yellow. Now, the terms imposed by Grant demonstrate a shrewd mind with an eye to the future. Unlike his victories at Fort Donelson and Vicksburg, Grant understood that he could afford to be magnanimous here at the end. And far from unconditional surrender Grant, the generous terms all but ensured that the Army of Northern Virginia would indeed go home peacefully. Volume 2 finishes up with an appendix containing the text of Grant's final report to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, along with a fold-out map of the southeastern United States titled Map of the Seat of War, 1861 to 1865. I found the report itself to be very interesting because it gives you Grant's perspective on the war while it was still fresh in his mind in the summer of 1865. The only thing marring the inside of the books are two inscriptions done in pencil. One is a name and a date, seemingly rather recent. I have no idea why someone would place such a mark in a book this old, but people do strange things, as in Volume 2. You can see that the end papers were used to do a math problem. Apparently someone cannot do arithmetic. I have no plans to erase these marks, though, because I'm afraid it would damage the books. All in all, I was really pleased with the condition of these volumes when I got them. You never know with an old book, and I did buy it online, but I did it on the advice of one of my professors, so I was really happy when I got it. So you can see why I value these books, why they hold a really prominent place on my bookshelf. Do you have any favorite books? Let me know why. And any comments on Grant would be appreciated as well. If you like this video, let me know, and we'll see some more in the future. Please give me a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you down the road.